Ladies and gentlemen, the World Cup is almost upon us. A magical festival of football that comes around every 4 years, brings us all together, then swiftly disappears and takes all the global camaraderie it built along with it. Last time the pinnacle of international football came along, it was the French that came out victorious. In 2022, they'll be looking to repeat a feat that has only been achieved twice in the history of the World Cup, retaining the title. In the 21 World Cups that have taken place thus far, this has been done by Brazil, 58 and 62, and Italy, 34 and 38. On paper, this France team is probably still the strongest team in the world. It's hard to argue that, but do these guys have what it takes? Unfortunately, recent history says otherwise. The curse of champions. Not only is it rare that a country wins back-to-back titles, but for several countries, particularly over the past 2 decades or so, it's rare that a country even makes it out the group stages during their title defense. Whether it's nerves, a lack of desire, fatigue from long seasons with their clubs, or the works of voodoo, 4 out of the last 5 World Cup champions have failed to advance past the earliest stage of the tournament in their defending campaign. And with pretty heavy drama already leaking out of the French camp, it seems as though things may not be a-okay there at the moment. Today we're going to talk about the curse and detail how it's played out for a few of the reigning champs over the years. So with that being said, what is the curse of world champions? Yo, what's going on guys? Hope you're all doing well. I'm Tinashe and welcome back to another Football Iconic video. If you haven't already, it'd mean a lot to me if you subscribed, helps the channel out a lot, but no pressure. With the World Cup coming up in a bit, there's obviously a natural buzz going around in the lead up to all of it, and I've got a few interesting stories that I want to talk about in the lead up to all of it. So I'm pretty excited to kick off with this one. Do you see what I did there? Kick off. This video is sponsored. Listen guys, it may come as a surprise to you, but I read the comments. And amongst one of the many takeaways that I've gotten from those comments is that a lot of you guys seem to fancy yourselves as elite football managers. And I don't judge. You know, I also think that I'm one haircut away from managing the Champions League final. But before it comes to that, I'll be honing my skills with the sponsor of today's video, Spitch. Spitch is a fantasy football manager where you can play against other prospective managers in competitions such as the Premier League, the Bundesliga, the Champions League, even the Copa Libertadores. Here are just a few features that make Spitch such a fantastic platform. It's a daily manager, meaning that on each new match day, you can create a brand new team and choose from the entire catalog of players, new formations and all. It has a deep statistical point system that considers goals, shots on target, tackles, interceptions, and much more. Players with the most points after each match week can win actual money. And finally, you can set up your own community and invite your mates, family, and even people that might subscribe to you on YouTube. So go ahead and use the link in the description to sign up to Spitch. And if you're so inclined, use the one below that to join the Iconic League. Thanks again to Spitch for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to it. For the sake of simplicity, in this video, we're just going to talk about 5 instances where the curse has shown its nasty head, and then round it all up with some comments on France leading up to this current World Cup. So to start this one off, I want to go back to 1966. Going into the 1966 World Cup in England, Brazil were coming off back-to-back World Cup triumphs. Having your first and second wins come in such quick succession is pretty nice, I think. And they were firmly on the hunt for 3 in a row, something never done before. That is still the case to this very day. Social media and instant connectivity wasn't around back then, so I'm only guessing that YouTube and TikTok compilations weren't as rampant back then, but again, this is only speculation. But if they were, I'd only guess that everyone's feeds would be inundated with HD Pele, Garrincha, Jairzinho, and Tostão's skills and goals compilations. Oh, and don't forget the shitty no copyright EDM. Okay, no, let's forget that. Cut it out. Pele in particular was going into his 3rd ever World Cup. After becoming a 2-time champion at the age of 21, he was now 25 and big things were expected of him as he was now, by this point, very much the best player on the planet. And by almost every account, everything your granddad told you about Pele was correct. He really was that guy. People may make memes about his scoring records and whatnot, but I think a lot of people also forget that he was the best player on the planet, running circles around people, scoring boatloads and all that other craziness, when South America was undoubtedly the premier footballing continent on the planet. Keeping all of that in mind, if you're a defender, how exactly do you keep a man like that from running circles around you? In Brazil's first game against Bulgaria in the group stages, the Bulgarians' game plan was pretty obvious from the get-go. If this man is in possession, it's man first. ball second. I think every team will take care of him in the same manner. What Brazil coach Vicente Feola said following this game. He was right. However, Pelé was kicked so much that he missed the next game against Hungary, which Brazil lost in his absence. He played the final group stage match against Portugal, but was kicked out of the game once more and was left limping on the field at one point as subs weren't permitted late in that match. Couple that with some questionable tactics from Brazil's manager, including changing almost his entire team for the final match, and Brazil was sent home early. The targeting from the opposition and poor protection that Pelé got from the referees led him to quit the national team altogether. Despite this, he did return to the 1970 World Cup as one of the senior members and won his third. He also picked up the golden ball in the process. That's not bad. You know, there are just some nations that seem to perpetually be in a golden generation when it comes to football. There aren't all that many, but I'm pretty sure France is one of the first one that comes to mind when you guys really think about it. Which makes sense when you have names like Platini, Zidane, and Benzema all belonging to different generations and all almost winning Ballon d'Ors. You realize what kind of a nation we're dealing with. I mean, the Ballon d'Or was created by France football, but that's besides the point. Anyway, with the tournament being held in their backyard, 1998 was their year. They beat the reigning champions Brazil in the final by 3-0, and just look at this team. Honestly ridiculous. With a squad like this, it's no wonder that they also won the 2000 Euros 2 years later. So with the 2002 World Cup in South Korea around the corner, who do you guys think were the favorites? If your answer was the team that crashed out at the group stages without winning a single game or scoring a single goal, you'd be correct. And what made this even more crazy was that this squad mostly consisted of the same core group of players that had won the previous 2 major internationals for them, and most of them were still in good form. Fun fact, this was actually the first World Cup that I actively watched and engaged in, and I remember the reactions from some of my French supporting family when they tumbled out at the early stages. It wasn't a pretty sight. After being absolutely stunned by a 0-0 by World Cup first-timers Senegal, the entire campaign was derailed. They drew to Uruguay, then lost to Denmark, and ended up dead last in their group. Notably, Zidane was injured for the tournament's opener, and frustrations were showing as Thierry Henry picked up a red card in the match against Uruguay and missed the final match against Denmark. So it certainly wasn't smooth sailing. It's really something terrible, because it doesn't happen that the world champions go out in the first round. We still have the best players, but something was broken in the machine. Marcel Desailly, French captain. If only you knew, Marcel. If only you knew. 2006. Italy shocks the world by playing some of the most defensive football in the tournament, beating a host of favorites and winning the whole thing. And they did it in typical Italian fashion. A strong defense, a strong counter, and a fierce fighting spirit. 2010, however, proved to be the exact opposite. I mean, technically, so did the 2018 and the 2022 qualifiers, but that's not what this video is about. If you were to look at the group that the Italians were drawn in before the tournament began, you probably would have thought that at the very least, this stage of the competition wouldn't be much of a challenge for them. It was. As Italy failed to do what they're best at, they drew to Paraguay and New Zealand. This was followed by a loss to Slovakia that sealed their fate. Although, you gotta give them props for even getting a point out of New Zealand. They went undefeated that year. Legend. Highly revered coach Marcello Lippi, who had led Italy to the promised land in the previous edition, saw his side play with little to no enthusiasm as their seemingly easy group walked all over them. But let me not be too harsh. Perhaps it's not as bad as I'm making it out to be. After all, their fellow finalists from 2006, France, also bowed out in the group stages, as did the host nation. First time a host nation's been eliminated that early. Lovely. Ah yes, the Spanish Golden Generation. 2 Euros and a World Cup in 4 years between 2008 and 2012 is some pretty good stuff. For what seemed like ages, nobody knew how to deal with the slick movement and interplay of this remarkable group of players, until almost everyone did. Upon landing in Brazil, it became apparent that the defense had a Puyol-shaped hole in it and that Casillas' mind was still in Spain. Opposing teams realized that Spain's pressing game wasn't exactly on par with their passing game in the midfield. Also, Diego Costa proved to not be the greatest striking force for the system that they were going for. After all, the Atletico Madrid way wasn't exactly tiki-taka. The Netherlands exacted some pretty brutal revenge on the Spaniards in a rematch of the 2010 final. 5-1. as Robben ran circles around Spain's defense and Van Persie took flight. For some reason, they went into their second match with the exact same tactics, and unsurprisingly, Chile punished them with 2 goals and no reply. A win against Australia possibly lifted spirits, but at the end of the day, all it really was consolation. I mean, at least they got an extended holiday, I guess. Football is a simple game. 22 men chase a ball for 90 minutes, and at the end, the Germans always win. Gary Lineker famously once said this, half jokingly, possibly half frustrated. In 2014, this phrase proved to hold merit. It was smooth sailing for the Germans as they secured the 4th title in their history and the 1st since the country's unification in 1990. They also ruined the host nation's party and robbed Messi of being labeled as the undisputed GOAT in the process, although some may blame Gonzalo Higuain for that last one. It's crazy that was almost 8 years ago. In any case, it was an impressive showing all round. Fast forward to 2018, and going into that edition, the Germans were still favourites amongst all the teams in contention. They had lost a few leaders in the team, such as Philipp Lahm, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Per Mertesacker and Miroslav Klose. But some exciting young talent in Leon Goretzka, Timo Werner, Julian Brandt and Joshua Kimmich seemed to be appropriate candidates to maintain the winning cycle. Or so we thought. According to Joachim Löw, quote-unquote arrogance definitely played a role in it. Certain viewers simply blamed it on a lack of team cohesion. Even Mesut Ozil and İlkay Gündogan's apparent ties to controversial Turkish leader Recep Tayyip Erdogan was handed a portion of the blame. Whatever it was, Gary Lineker's now infamous words simply did not hold up this time around. By the standards of the reigning champions, again, this looked to be an easy group. But after a 1-0 loss to Mexico in their first match, those who knew of the curse instantly knew what was going on. Careless and sloppy. A late win against Sweden restored hopes, but then a late, dramatic loss to South Korea swiftly undid that. Like 3 of the previous 4 reigning champions before them, they were sent packing early. So I'm not entirely sure if I've mentioned this already, but in 1998, something special happened in France. Kylian Mbappe was born. Yes, I stole that tagline from a pretty big Nike commercial from 2018. Anyway, 20 years later, Mbappe and a host of superstars walked into the 2018 World Cup as, in my eyes, the best team on paper. They then, unsurprisingly, lifted the trophy at the end of it all. On paper, they probably still have the best team, right? But the amount of headlines and controversies that have been coming out of the French camp in recent weeks is it's pretty crazy. I must admit. We have Paul Pogba allegedly paying witch doctors to curse Mbappe while getting blackmailed by his own brother, although the first of those allegations has been swiftly denied by Pogba. I guess you could say he's trying to dispel the illusion. And then we have Romain Molina, undoubtedly the bravest football investigative journalist I've ever bared witness to, alleging some pretty crazy accusations on high-ranking members of the French Football Federation too. Now, I'm not even going to attempt to get into those allegations in this video, as this channel would undoubtedly be taken down immediately. And of course, this isn't directly a team-related matter, but this is the FFF. Adding on to the controversies, if history serves correctly, it was poor performances combined with a slew of bust-ups both on the pitch with players and in the stands with families that led to France's elimination from the 2020 Euros last year. Look, it's highly possible and probably likely that none of this will have any bearing on how France will perform in the upcoming tournament. After all, I am just a guy in his room spouting nonsense. I'm not sure why anyone takes me seriously at this point, so don't get angry in the comments, please. It's just a YouTube video. But let's just say history doesn't look like it's on France's side at the moment. Regardless, let's see how this one plays out. And there we have it. What do you guys think about this curse, and do you think that it's something that champions should legitimately be afraid of? Feel free to let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Also, feel free to follow me on all the socials, all the links are in the description. And yeah, that's all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.